What if the stars above us hold secrets far older than any civilization? For thousands of years, humanity has gazed at the heavens not just in awe, but with an unshakable belief that the cosmos speaks to us. Across cultures, continents, and centuries, celestial prophecies have shaped empires, foretold destinies, and sparked mysteries so profound they still haunt us today. Think of the Star of Bethlehem guiding the wise men, or Nostradamus penning cryptic verses about events centuries ahead of his time. These aren't just stories, they're fragments of a vast, untold dialogue between humankind and the universe, a conversation written in the language of comets, constellations, and cosmic omens. Now imagine uncovering 25 of the most enigmatic celestial prophecies ever recorded, tales where the sky didn't just whisper, but roared with warnings and revelations. Some of these stories change the course of history, while others remain unsolved puzzles, their meanings lost to time. From ancient priests deciphering eclipses as divine messages, to medieval astronomers convinced the alignment of planets heralded doom, these aren't mere myths. They're evidence of our enduring obsession with the idea that the heavens are trying to tell us something. And here's what's chilling: many of these prophecies came true with uncanny precision, while others, well, their mysteries might still be unfolding right above our heads. This journey won't just take you through time, it'll plunge you into the minds of those who dared to read the sky like a book. You'll witness how a single celestial event could topple kings, ignite revolutions, or send entire civilizations into panic. But more than that, you'll start to see the night sky as they did, not as random stars but as a canvas of hidden meaning. So let's unravel these 25 mysteries together, because somewhere in these tales lies a truth about our past, and maybe, just maybe, a clue about what the universe is trying to tell us next. The Star of Bethlehem burns as one of history's most debated celestial mysteries, a single point of light that, according to the Gospel of Matthew, guided the Magi to the birthplace of Jesus. But was it truly a miracle, or could science explain this legendary phenomenon? Astronomers and historians have wrestled with this question for centuries, proposing three compelling theories. The first suggests it might have been a comet, a celestial wanderer with a blazing tail, often seen in ancient times as a divine omen. Chinese sky watchers recorded a comet around 5 BCE, its path visible in the night sky for weeks. Could this have been the same star that drew the wise men eastward? Then there's the supernova theory, a dying star exploding with such brilliance it outshone the entire galaxy. In 1572, the astronomer Tycho Brahe witnessed a supernova so bright it was visible even in daylight. If such an event occurred around the time of Christ's birth, it would have been impossible to ignore, searing itself into the collective memory of cultures across the globe. Yet no definitive records of such a cataclysmic event exist from that precise era, leaving this theory tantalizing but unproven. The most mathematically convincing explanation points to a rare planetary alignment. In 7 BCE, Jupiter and Saturn converged in the constellation Pisces not once, but 3 times, an extraordinary event that would have captivated ancient astrologers. To the Babylonians, Jupiter symbolized kingship, while Saturn represented justice. Pisces was tied to the land of Israel. Together, this celestial dance might have signaled the birth of a divine king in Judea, a message the Magi, likely skilled astronomers themselves, would have understood as prophecy in motion. But here's where the mystery deepens. The Gospel describes the star as moving, stopping directly over Bethlehem, a detail no natural phenomenon can replicate. Some scholars argue this was purely theological symbolism, not meant to be taken literally. Others propose the star's movement was an illusion created by Earth's rotation during the Magi's journey. Whatever the truth, the Star of Bethlehem transcends astronomy. It's a story of faith intersecting with the cosmos, a moment where heaven and earth seem to collide, and whether divine or celestial, its light still captivates us 2,000 years later. Few figures in history have stirred as much fascination and controversy as Decode Nostradamus, the 16th century apothecary better known as Nostradamus. His cryptic quatrains, written in a tangled mix of French, Latin, and symbolic imagery, have been mined for centuries as supposed prophecies of world-shaking events. From the rise of tyrants to catastrophic attacks, his words are often stretched and twisted to fit tragedies long after they occur. But how much of this is genuine foresight and how much is clever hindsight? Take his most infamous prediction, the rise of Adolf Hitler. One quatrain mentions a hyster from the West bringing terror to Europe. Skeptics note that hyster was actually a Latin name for the Danube River, not a misspelling of Hitler's name. Yet believers argue the description, a leader emerging from economic chaos, wielding symbols like the swastika, fits too perfectly to dismiss. Then there's the attack on September 11th. Some claim Nostradamus foresaw two metal birds striking the great city, igniting flames that would cause the earth to tremble. But here's the catch, those lines don't exist in his original texts. They're fabrications circulated after the fact to lend eerie credibility to his legend. The real magic of Nostradamus lies not in his accuracy but in his vagueness. His verses are riddles, flexible enough to match countless events if you're willing to overlook misfires like his prophecy of a three-eyed king ruling in 2099. Scholars point out that his true gift was tapping into universal fears, war, plagues, upheaval, themes so timeless they'll always find a match somewhere in history. Perhaps the greatest prophecy he ever made was the unshakable human desire to find meaning in chaos, even if it means rewriting the stars to suit our stories. Long before doomsday preppers stockpiled canned goods, before Hollywood turned prophecy into blockbusters, the ancient Maya crafted a calendar so precise it still baffles scientists today. Their long count system didn't just track time, it wove it into cycles of creation and renewal, each spanning thousands of years. But when the world fixated on December 21, 2012 as an apocalyptic end date, the truth behind the Maya's celestial wisdom was drowned out by panic. The frenzy began with a simple misinterpretation. The completion of the 13th Bacton, a cycle of 144,000 days, marked not destruction but a cosmic reset. Imagine an odometer rolling over to zeros. For the Maya, this was a moment of transformation, not termination. Their texts describe it as the return of the god Bolon Yokt, a deity associated with war and renewal, signaling a time of upheaval and rebirth. Yet Western media spun it into a fiery finale, fueled by sensational films and conspiracy theories. Archaeologists point to glyphs at Tortuguero, Mexico, the only known Mayan inscription referencing the 2012 date. It mentions no catastrophe, just a ceremonial event tied to the divine. Modern Maya elders like Tata Pedro Cruz of Guatemala have repeatedly clarified that their ancestors never predicted doom. The world doesn't end, he insists. It transforms like a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. The irony, the hysteria overshadowed the Maya's real gift, a calendar more accurate than Europe's at the time, harmonizing solar years, lunar cycles, and Venus's orbit. Their astronomers tracked celestial patterns with naked eye precision, aligning pyramids like cosmic clocks, yet the 2012 phenomenon left its mark. It sparked a global conversation about humanity's obsession with apocalypses, a theme echoing from religious prophecies to climate anxiety. And perhaps that's the real legacy of the Maya's end date, a mirror held up to our own fears, revealing not the heaven's secrets but our longing for meaning in an uncertain universe. High atop the slopes of Mount Parnassus, where the air thins and the sky feels close enough to touch, the Oracle of Delphi spoke in riddles that shaped the fate of nations. The Pythia, as she was known, didn't just predict the future, she channeled it, her voice trembling with visions sent straight from the gods. But what if her prophecies weren't purely divine? What if the very heavens themselves whispered clues into her trances? Take King Croesus of Lydia, who sought the oracle's guidance before marching against Persia. Her reply was classic Delphi, cryptic yet precise. If you cross the river Hollies, a great empire will fall. Croesus assumed victory was assured until his own kingdom crumbled beneath Persian might. The prophecy had been true, just not in the way he'd hoped. But here's the twist. Historians now believe the Pythia's warnings were often tied to celestial signs. Eclipses, comets, even planetary alignments could shape her pronouncements. In Croesus' case, some scholars argue a solar eclipse visible over Lydia in 585 BCE might have been interpreted as a divine portent, subtly steering her words. The temple itself was no ordinary shrine. Built over a fissure in the earth, it seeped mysterious vapors, gases later identified as ethylene, known to induce euphoria and hallucinations. The Pythia would inhale these fumes while seated on a tripod, her body swaying as she gazed upward through the temple's open roof where constellations wheeled overhead. Was it the gods speaking or the stars themselves? The line blurred. Pilgrims reported that her eyes would roll back, fixating on the sky as if reading from a celestial scroll. Even the timing of her prophecies was tied to the cosmos. Consultations only happened on auspicious days, often coinciding with planetary movements or sacred festivals linked to Apollo, the sun god. One account describes how the Pythia refused to speak for months until a rare alignment of Venus and Jupiter cleared the divine air. Modern geologists and astronomers now suspect that seismic activity beneath Delphi, which released those trance-inducing gases, may have peaked during certain astronomical events, creating a feedback loop between Earth and sky. Yet for all the scientific explanations, something remains unexplained. How did the Pythia's visions so often align with real-world outcomes, even when her words seemed nonsensical? Perhaps the true magic lay in the intersection of geology and astronomy, a sacred cocktail of subterranean fumes and heavenly signs that opened a door to something beyond human understanding. The oracle's voice is silent now, but the mystery endures. Were her prophecies a dialogue with the stars, or proof that the universe has always been speaking if only we know how to listen? In the spring of 1345, as a rare alignment of Jupiter and Saturn blazed in the night sky, panic spread faster than any disease. Medieval astrologers knew this celestial meeting, what they called the Great Conjunction, was no ordinary event. To them, it was a cosmic scream, a warning written in the stars that upheaval was coming, and they weren't wrong. Within months, the Black Death would sweep across Europe, wiping out nearly half the continent's population in one of history's deadliest pandemics. But was this tragedy written in the heavens, or did terrified minds simply connect dots that weren't there? The science of the time saw no separation between celestial and earthly events. Astrologers like Geoffrey de Meaux, physician to the French king, meticulously tracked planetary movements, convinced they governed everything from harvests to human health. When Jupiter and Saturn met in the sign of Aquarius, a constellation associated with air, their logic was chillingly clear. They believed the alignment would poison the atmosphere, turning the very wind into a carrier of death. And when ships from the east began docking in Sicily with crews already rotting from plague, it seemed the stars had spoken, yet the truth was far more complex. While the conjunction did occur, modern astronomers note it happened in March months before the plague reached Europe. The rats and fleas spreading the disease paid no heed to planetary alignments. But for medieval society, drowning in fear and desperate for explanations, the timing felt too precise to ignore. Churches rang bells to cleanse the tainted air, while quacks sold amulets engraved with astrological symbols, promising protection from the miasma of the stars. What's fascinating isn't just the mistaken belief, but how it reshaped history. the plague's devastation and its perceived celestial origins shattered faith in old institutions. People began questioning the Church's authority, sowing seeds for the Renaissance. Even today, echoes of this panic linger in our tendency to link disasters to cosmic events, from blood moons to asteroid scares. The Great Conjunction didn't cause the Black Death, but it revealed something profound about humanity. When faced with the unimaginable, we'll always look to the sky for answers, even if the real danger lurks much closer to home. The night sky blazed with an unearthly visitor in the spring of 1811, a comet so brilliant it cast shadows at midnight. With a tail stretching over 20 degrees across the heavens, this celestial spectacle sparked a wave of dread and wonder from Europe to North America. Farmers claimed they could read by its light, while sailors swore it made the ocean glow. But to those who studied the stars for signs, this was no mere cosmic curiosity. It was a herald of chaos, a portent so unmistakable that even Napoleon himself reportedly paused his war machine to gaze upward in unease. Across Russia, priests declared the comet a divine warning, its fiery tail symbolizing the wrath of heaven. Newspapers from Moscow to Paris filled with doomsayers' predictions, linking its appearance to everything from failed harvests to the collapse of empires. One Prussian astronomer noted that the comet's path mirrored the ancient Sword of Damocles constellation, a detail seized upon by pamphleteers as proof that war and famine would soon follow. Their grim forecasts weren't entirely wrong. Within months, Napoleon's Grand Army would march eastward into Russia, only to meet catastrophe in the frozen winter that followed. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the same comet was seen as a sign favoring American forces in the newly declared War of 1812, with some native tribes interpreting it as a spirit omen foretelling the decline of European settlers. The comet's timing was uncanny. It reached peak visibility just as geopolitical tensions boiled over, reinforcing the ancient belief that celestial events and earthly fortunes were intertwined. Even scientists of the era struggled to separate fact from folklore. French chemist Jean-Baptiste Biot, who studied the comet's composition, admitted its arrival felt suspiciously prophetic. Russian peasants, watching its glow through the smoke of burning villages during Napoleon's invasion, called it the fire bear, a celestial beast sent to devour invaders. Yet beneath the superstition lay a kernel of eerie truth. The years following the comet's appearance saw volcanic eruptions, climate anomalies, and the infamous Year Without a Summer in 1816, events now linked to cosmic dust and solar cycles. Whether by chance or some forgotten cosmic rhythm, the Great Comet of 1811 didn't just predict upheaval. It presided over a turning point in history when empires cracked and the modern world began to take shape. Its light faded, but the legend endured. Sometimes when the sky speaks, even the mightiest conquerors would do well to listen. On the morning of June 30th, 1908, a blinding light tore across the Siberian sky, a flash so intense it seared the retinas of reindeer herders 60 kilometers away. Moments later, an explosion rocked the remote Tunguska region with the force of 1,000 Hiroshimas, flattening 80 million trees across 2,000 square kilometers. The shockwave circled the globe twice, while strange atmospheric glows lit up European nights for weeks. But what caused this cataclysm, and why did it spawn decades of extraterrestrial prophecies? Scientists initially pinned the blast on a meteorite, yet no crater was ever found. Later theories suggested a comet fragment vaporizing mid-air, explaining the absence of debris. But for conspiracy hunters, the absence of evidence became evidence itself. Soviet expeditions in the 1920s noted bizarre details: trees standing upright at ground zero, stripped of branches like telephone poles. Reports spoke of metallic fragments with unnatural compositions, and locals whispered of sky demons seen before the blast. These anomalies fed theories that something far stranger than a space rock had descended on Tunguska, perhaps a malfunctioning alien spacecraft. its catastrophic failure interpreted by fringe groups as a deliberate warning. By the 1950s, UFO cults had woven Tunguska into their mythology. Russian mystic Alexander Kazantsev proposed the explosion resulted from an atomic-powered Martian ship, an idea that inspired a wave of cosmic prophets. One group, the Siberians of the Stars, claimed the event marked the opening of a celestial gateway, with future explosions heralding humanity's ascension. American contactee George Adamski later insisted Tunguska was a galactic correction, preventing hostile aliens from establishing a Siberian base. Even today, the event fuels speculation. Declassified CIA files from the Cold War reveal interest in Tunguska's electromagnetic effects. Some suggest they mirror descriptions of Tesla's energy weapon experiments. Others point to indigenous Evenki tales of the fiery god Ogdi, who supposedly cursed the land that day. Science offers plausible explanations, but the persistence of these myths reveals something timeless. When faced with the unexplainable, we'll always search the stars for meaning, whether they're sending messages or not. The night of April 15, 2014, marked the beginning of a celestial phenomenon that sent shockwaves through both religious and scientific communities. A rare blood moon tetrad, 4 total lunar eclipses arriving back-to-back, each turning the moon an eerie shade of crimson. For centuries, cultures have viewed blood moons as omens, but this particular sequence struck a nerve. Bible scholars pointed to verses in Joel and Revelation warning that the moon would turn to blood before the day of judgment, while self-proclaimed prophets like John Hagee linked the eclipses to global upheaval, claiming they aligned precisely with Jewish holidays in a pattern not seen since the 15th century. The internet erupted with doomsday theories, but what did science have to say about this cosmic spectacle? NASA astronomers were quick to clarify the mechanics behind the phenomenon. A blood moon occurs during a total lunar eclipse when Earth's shadow blankets the moon, filtering sunlight through our planet's atmosphere. Just like a sunset paints the sky red, this scattered light tints the lunar surface a coppery glow, a perfectly explainable optical effect. The tetrad's timing equally natural. While 4 consecutive blood moons are uncommon, they're not miraculous. Between 1600 and 1900, for instance, 8 such tetrads occurred without accompanying apocalypses. The supposed link to Jewish holy days, a quirk of celestial mechanics, eclipses often cluster near equinoxes, which coincide with Passover and Sukkot. Yet beneath the debunking lies a richer story. The 2014 tetrad did coincide with measurable unrest from the rise of ISIS to heightened Israeli-Palestinian tensions, fueling belief in cosmic signs. Even secular observers noted the eerie timing, though statisticians countered that global conflicts erupt constantly. Cherry-picking those that align with eclipses is textbook confirmation bias. More telling was how the event revealed humanity's enduring hunger for apocalyptic narratives. From the Mayan calendar scare to Halley's comet panics, history shows we're wired to seek patterns, especially when the sky seems to mirror our anxieties. Perhaps the real prophecy was in the reaction itself. The blood moon frenzy peaked just as social media algorithms began amplifying sensational content, creating a feedback loop between ancient fears and modern technology. Telescopes captured the moon's rust-colored surface with stunning clarity, while smartphones broadcast the images worldwide, an irony not lost on scientists. For the first time in history, a celestial event once whispered about in hushed tones could be scrutinized in real time by millions, yet the old mystique persisted. The tetrad came and went without cataclysm, but its legacy endures as a case study in how easily astronomy can be twisted into prophecy, and how, even in an age of space probes, we still sometimes see the sky not as it is, but as we fear it might be. While the Star of Bethlehem has been debated for centuries, another celestial mystery hides in its shadow, one that connects the Magi's journey to a long-lost Babylonian tradition. Ancient clay tablets unearthed from the ruins of Mesopotamia reveal that the wise men who followed the star may have been part of a far older astrological brotherhood, trained to read the heavens with precision we're only beginning to understand. These weren't just mystics, they were scientists of their day, tracking planetary movements with mathematical rigor. One tablet, now housed in the British Museum, records an extraordinary celestial event around the time of Jesus' birth, a conjunction of Jupiter and the star Regulus in the constellation Leo. To Babylonian astrologers, this signaled the rise of a king. Even more compelling, the same tablet describes Jupiter's retrograde motion, where it appeared to pause in the sky before reversing direction. Could this be the origin of the Gospel's claim that the star stopped over Bethlehem? Modern astronomers have run simulations confirming that in 7 BCE, Jupiter did indeed perform this celestial dance, aligning with both the timeline and the biblical description in a way no comet or supernova could. But the plot thickens. Another theory points to the Babylonian Kidanu, a secret astronomical text used by temple priests. These scrolls contained formulas predicting planetary movements decades in advance, knowledge so guarded it was considered divine. Some scholars suggest the Magi might have consulted such a text, interpreting a rare alignment as a coded message about a Messiah's birth. There's even a tantalizing reference in the Dead Sea Scrolls to a star tablet brought to Jerusalem by Eastern sages, though the artifact itself has never been found. Perhaps the most surprising twist comes from Zoroastrian texts, which speak of a new star heralding the coming of Saoshyant, a savior figure. The Magi, likely Zoroastrian priests themselves, would have seen this as confirmation of their journey. What if the Star of Bethlehem wasn't just a celestial anomaly, but the convergence of multiple ancient prophecies, Babylonian, Jewish, and Persian, all pointing to the same moment in time? The sky, it seems, was a universal language, and that night it spoke in tongues. The Ides of March 44 BCE dawned under a sky heavy with omens. For weeks, strange lights had haunted Rome, comets streaking like fiery daggers, eclipses turning the sun black at noon. Even the birds seemed agitated, their frantic flights interpreted by augurs as messages from the gods. But no warning was more chilling than the soothsayer's whisper to Julius Caesar, "Beware the Ides of March." What unfolded next wasn't just political conspiracy. It was a collision of human ambition and celestial prophecy that would echo through history. Days before the assassination, Plutarch records an eerie detail. The horses Caesar had consecrated to the gods refused to eat, their eyes rolling in terror as if sensing impending doom. Then came the nightmare. His wife, Calpurnia, woke screaming, dreaming she held her husband's bleeding body, but most striking were the celestial signs. A comet, the Julian star, appeared during games held in Caesar's honor, its 7-day blaze interpreted as his soul ascending to the heavens. Modern astronomers confirm a comet was visible that spring, though Romans saw it as divine fury over the murder of a soon-to-be deity. Shakespeare immortalized these omens in his play, amplifying their dramatic weight. He added the infamous scene where Caesar ignores the soothsayer's warning, dismissing it as idle dreams. Yet the playwright drew from real Roman beliefs the idea that nature itself rebelled against regicide. In the play, a violent storm rages the night before the murder, lions roam the capital, and ghosts walk the streets. While some details were poetic license, the core truth remained. Romans saw the cosmos as a mirror to human events. What's often overlooked is how Caesar's own reforms fed this belief. As Pontifex Maximus, he'd overhauled the Roman calendar to align with solar cycles, literally rewriting time to mirror celestial order. His assassination during the spring equinox, when day and night hang in balance, felt symbolically potent. Even his killers couldn't escape the omen law. Brutus later claimed a spectral figure visited him before the Battle of Philippi, declaring itself his evil genius. The aftermath cemented the legend. For years, Romans reported Caesar's comet reappearing during crises, as if the heavens kept score. Octavian, his adopted heir, minted coins with the comet, branding it proof of Caesar's divinity, a masterstroke of propaganda blending astronomy and myth. Today, we might dismiss these signs as coincidence or superstition, but their power lay in perception. When the skies themselves seemed to protest Caesar's death, it transformed a political murder into something cosmic, a reminder that even emperors are subject to forces greater than themselves. Perhaps that's why these omens endure. They speak to our deepest fear that the universe keeps secrets we're not meant to understand. On August 21, 2017, day turned to night across America as the moon's shadow raced from Oregon to South Carolina, a celestial spectacle dubbed the Great American Eclipse. For scientists, it was a chance to study the sun's corona in unprecedented detail. But for countless others, the event crackled with prophetic significance, reviving ancient fears and modern doomsday theories in equal measure. Native tribes like the Choctaw and Lakota had long viewed eclipses as moments of cosmic realignment, when the sun and moon battled for dominance. Some traditions describe the event as a celestial bear swallowing the sun, with tribes banging pots or firing arrows skyward to scare the creature away. The 2017 eclipse reignited these stories, particularly in the path of totality where the sun vanished completely. On South Dakota's Pine Ridge Reservation, elders warned the eclipse might trigger Wakantanka, the Great Spirit's judgment, while Navajo families observed strict taboos against eating or drinking during the darkness. These weren't just superstitions, they were cultural memories of eclipses coinciding with droughts or wars, events seared into oral history as divine warnings. Evangelical circles buzzed with even darker interpretations. Preachers like Pastor Paul Begley pointed to biblical passages where eclipses herald the end times, particularly Joel's prophecy that the sun would darken before the great and terrible day of the Lord. Conspiracy theorists noted the eclipse crossed 7 U.S. cities named Salem, the Hebrew word for peace, interpreting this as a coded message about impending chaos. Social media amplified these claims, with videos claiming the event would trigger the rapture or open dimensional portals, going viral weeks before totality. The hysteria wasn't unique to modern America. Historical records show eclipses have always stirred panic. When darkness fell over Constantinople in 550 CE, Emperor Justinian reportedly collapsed in terror, believing it signaled his downfall. The eclipse of May 29, 1453, paralyzed Ottoman forces besieging Constantinople until Sultan Mehmed II convinced his troops it was a good omen, turning their fear into momentum that toppled the city's walls. Even Mark Twain wove eclipse lore into literature, with A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, featuring the protagonist using foreknowledge of an eclipse to fake godlike powers. What made the 2017 event distinct was its collision of old and new. Astronomers live-streamed the eclipse to millions, while apps plotted its path down to the second, yet tribal elders still told creation stories about solar demons, and pastors mined it for apocalyptic clues. The real revelation that even in our age of satellites and quantum physics, the primal awe of watching the sun disappear still taps into something deeper than reason. The eclipse came and went without catastrophe, but its shadow lingered in our collective psyche, proof that no matter how much we explain the heavens, we can't silence their ancient echo in our bones. Deep in the cliffs of Mali, where the Niger River carves through red sandstone, the Dogon people have guarded a celestial secret for over 1,000 years, one that shouldn't have been possible without telescopes. Their oral traditions spoke of Sirius not as a single star, but a binary system with an invisible companion they called Potolo. This dense, tiny star, they claimed, orbited Sirius every 50 years in an elliptical dance, its weight so immense it distorted the path of its brighter twin. The revelation stunned astronomers when anthropologists recorded these details in the 1930s, because Sirius B, the white dwarf companion matching this exact description, wasn't even photographed until 1970. The Dogon didn't just know about Sirius B's existence. Their elders described its composition as the heaviest thing in the universe, a dead star made of matter, finer than water but heavier than all the iron on Earth. Modern science confirms white dwarfs pack a sun's worth of mass into a sphere the size of Earth, their density so extreme a teaspoon would weigh tons. Even more baffling, the Dogon's 50-year orbital calculation aligns almost perfectly with contemporary astronomy's 50.1-year measurement. How could a pre-industrial culture possess such precise celestial knowledge? Skeptics argue it's a case of cultural contamination that the Dogon learned of Sirius B from visiting European astronomers in the early 20th century. French anthropologist Marcel Grioul, who first documented the Dogon's astronomy, worked alongside missionaries and colonial officials who might have shared modern discoveries. Yet the tribe's elders insist this wisdom traces back to ancestral contact with amphibious beings called Nommo, who descended from the Sirius system in a great arc bringing advanced knowledge. Their cave paintings depict this otherworldly visitation, complete with spiral galaxies and elliptical orbits eerily reminiscent of modern astrophysics diagrams. The controversy deepens when examining Dogon star maps. Beyond Sirius B, they describe a third star in the system, Sirius C, which astronomers have yet to confirm definitively, though gravitational anomalies suggest its possible existence. Their legends also reference Saturn's rings and Jupiter's 4 largest moons, all invisible to the naked eye. Could these details really be guesses? Perhaps the most compelling evidence against the contamination theory comes from the Dogon's own isolation. Their villages perch on the Bandiagara escarpment, a fortress of cliffs largely cut off from outside influence until the 1900s. Their astronomical teachings are woven into initiation rites spanning generations, with wooden carvings of Sirius's orbit dated to at least the 16th century. While some details might have been embellished over time, the core accuracy remains unsettling. Modern astrophysicists like Carl Sagan conceded that while the Sirius mystery is intriguing, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Yet the Dogon's knowledge continues to defy easy explanation. Whether it's proof of ancient alien contact, lost advanced science, or an uncanny series of educated guesses, their story forces us to reconsider how civilizations understand the cosmos and who might have been teaching them. The night sky in 1997 offered one of the most dazzling celestial displays of the century, the Hale-Bopp comet, its icy tail stretching like a brushstroke across the heavens. Visible to the naked eye for a record 18 months, it captivated millions with its ethereal glow. But for 39 members of the Heaven's Gate cult, this comet wasn't just a spectacle. It was a cosmic summons, a sign so undeniable it convinced them to leave their earthly bodies behind in the belief they'd ascend to a higher plane. Their tragic end remains one of the most chilling examples of how celestial events can twist human perception into fatal delusion. At the heart of their belief system lay a warped fusion of Christianity, science fiction, and New Age cosmology. Cult leaders Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles preached that Earth was merely a garden, a temporary stopover before souls could journey to the next level. They saw themselves as enlightened beings existing in human vessels to complete a divine mission. When Hale-Bopp appeared, Applewhite became convinced a spacecraft trailed the comet, sent to transport his followers to salvation. This wasn't just speculation. He claimed direct communication with extraterrestrial guides, who allegedly revealed the comet's true purpose through coded messages in pop culture and technology. The media frenzy surrounding Hale-Bopp unwittingly fueled the cult's fatal certainty. A snippet on an obscure radio show later debunked claimed NASA had detected an unidentified object following the comet. Tabloids and early internet forums amplified this into proof of alien visitation, creating an echo chamber Heaven's Gate eagerly consumed. Applewhite's followers, many of them tech-savvy, scoured online communities for evidence, interpreting random data as divine confirmation. Their website, eerily professional, mixed web design tutorials with manifesto-like posts about shedding their containers to board the cosmic vessel. What's often overlooked is how meticulously they planned their exit. The group filmed farewell videos, each member dressed identically in black shirts and Nike sneakers, a chilling uniformity meant to symbolize their readiness for rebirth. They timed their deaths to coincide with the comet's closest approach to Earth, a detail underscoring how deeply their theology tied celestial mechanics to salvation. Toxicology reports later revealed they'd mixed phenobarbital into pudding and vodka, a method designed to mimic falling asleep before their supposed interstellar journey. The aftermath forced uncomfortable questions about responsibility. Could the media's sensational coverage have unknowingly nudged them toward the edge? Did the romanticization of comets as mystical messengers in movies and books play a role? Psychologists point to the cult's isolation and Applewhite's charismatic control as primary factors, but the Hale-Bopp connection remains haunting. Unlike historical comet panics, this wasn't mere superstition. It was a calculated surrender to a warped celestial narrative. Heaven's Gate's legacy lingers in the way we discuss astronomical events today. Scientists now carefully phrase public announcements about comets or meteor showers, aware of how easily wonder can curdle into obsession. The tragedy serves as a dark reminder. While the stars inspire awe, they also mirror our deepest yearnings, and sometimes those reflections can lead to the unthinkable. The comet faded from view, but the question endures: how thin is the line between cosmic wonder and cosmic catastrophe? The Zodiac killer's reign of terror in the late 1960s left behind more than just crime scenes. It left a trail of ciphers, taunting letters, and a sinister obsession with celestial symbolism that still haunts cryptographers today. Of the 4 coded messages he sent to newspapers, 3 were cracked relatively quickly. But the 4th, known as the 340 cipher, remained stubbornly unbroken for over 50 years, its secrets locked behind a grid of 64 symbols that seemed to mock investigators from beyond the grave. What made this cipher different? The answer might lie in the stars specifically, the killer's eerie fascination with astrological signs and cosmic timing. Each of the zodiac's letters was signed with a crosshair-like symbol, but closer inspection reveals it wasn't just a target. It was a near-perfect replica of the celestial cross used in medieval astrology to mark significant planetary alignments. His first cipher, mailed on July 31, 1969, coincided with a new moon in Leo, a sign traditionally associated with theatricality and ego. The 340 cipher arrived just before the winter solstice, another potent astrological moment. Even more chilling, the killer frequently referenced slaves in the afterlife, a phrase some scholars link to the concept of celestial servitude in ancient Babylonian star lore. Was he embedding hidden astrological clues in his ciphers, or simply using cosmic imagery to amplify his myth? For decades, amateur codebreakers pored over the 340 cipher, convinced the key lay in its structure. Then, in 2020, a team of enthusiasts, a software engineer, a mathematician, and a music composer finally cracked it using an unexpected method. They treated the cipher like sheet music, assigning tonal values to each symbol. The decrypted message revealed no grand confession, just the zodiac's narcissistic glee. "I hope you are having lots of fun trying to catch me." But buried in the garbled text was another curious detail, a reference to paradise, a misspelling some believe was intentional, echoing the paradise motif found in alchemical texts where celestial bodies govern human fate. The breakthrough reignited interest in the killer's other unsolved ciphers, particularly the tantalizing 13-symbol puzzle mailed with a bloody piece of a victim's shirt. Here, the astrological connection grows stronger. The symbols resemble a distorted zodiac wheel with 13 markings instead of the usual 12, perhaps nodding to Ophiuchus, the forgotten 13th constellation. Online forums buzzed with theories that the cipher's solution required aligning it with star charts from the nights of the murders, Despite intense scrutiny, it remains unbroken, a silent challenge hanging in the air like an unfinished constellation. What lingers isn't just the mystery of the codes, but the killer's deliberate blurring of crime and cosmos. He signed one letter, your secret pal, 37, a number numerologists tie to the angel number associated with celestial guidance. He timed attacks near solstices and equinoxes, as if treating the solar calendar as a macabre checklist. Even his choice of victim locations, Lake Herman Road, Blue Rock Springs, echoed the naming conventions of star clusters. Whether these were intentional clues or the ravings of a delusional mind, they've cemented the Zodiac's legacy as a killer who didn't just hide behind ciphers, but behind the stars themselves. And somewhere in that cosmic puzzle, the truth may still be waiting, written in a language only the heavens fully understand. On the evening of March 13, 1997, the skies over Arizona ignited with one of the most widely witnessed UFO events in modern history, a spectacle so vast it defied conventional explanation. Thousands of residents from Phoenix to Tucson reported eerie formations of amber lights gliding silently in a perfect V-shape, stretching nearly a mile wide. Pilots, police officers, and even a former governor described the objects moving with impossible precision, hovering without sound before vanishing into the darkness. But what made the Phoenix lights truly extraordinary wasn't just their scale. It was how they seemed to echo ancient warnings carved into the bedrock of local indigenous prophecy. For the Hopi people whose ancestors had inhabited these lands for millennia, the event carried unsettling significance. Their oral traditions spoke of the blue star Kachina, a celestial messenger whose appearance would herald the final stages of humanity's purification before a great transition. Tribal elders pointed to the light's timing just weeks before Easter, a period traditionally associated with renewal, as anything but coincidental. Some claimed the object's formation mirrored sacred Hopi petroglyphs depicting star visitors, while others whispered of long-held prophecies warning that, when the blue star appears, the fifth world will emerge. Skeptics dismissed the connection, but for UFO researchers, the parallels were impossible to ignore. The official explanation only deepened the mystery. Months later, the U.S. Air Force attributed the lights to flares dropped during military exercises, despite witnesses insisting the objects they saw moved with deliberate intelligence, not the drifting trajectory of flares. Conspiracy theorists seized on discrepancies. Why were the flares allegedly deployed hours after the initial sightings? Why did radar operators at Luke Air Force Base reportedly detect unidentified returns that night? Even more puzzling was the testimony of Fife Symington, Arizona's governor at the time, who initially mocked the incident before admitting years later he'd seen something otherworldly himself. Declassified documents later revealed the military had indeed been testing advanced aircraft like the stealth blimp in the 90s, fueling theories the Phoenix lights were classified technology. Yet this explanation clashed with another bizarre detail: reports of a massive, boomerang-shaped craft seen hours before the V formation, a description matching UFO sightings in Belgium and New York years earlier. Was this a case of mistaken identity or something far stranger? Perhaps the most haunting aspect of the Phoenix lights is their enduring ambiguity. Unlike fleeting sightings, this event left an indelible mark on collective memory, blurring the line between folklore and potential disclosure. The lights vanished as mysteriously as they arrived, but their legacy lingers, not just in UFO lore, but as a modern echo of age-old prophecies warning that when the sky speaks, we do well to listen. Whether military experiment, extraterrestrial visitation, or cosmic coincidence, one truth remains: some mysteries refuse to fade into the night. The idea of a hidden planet hurtling toward Earth to unleash apocalypse has haunted doomsday circles for decades, but the myth of Nibiru, the so-called dark star, stands out as one of the most persistent and scientifically baseless cosmic scares of all time. It all began with a mistranslation. In 1976, authors Acharya Sitchin published The 12th Planet, claiming ancient Sumerian texts described a rogue world called Nibiru orbiting our Sun every 3,600 years. He insisted this planet was home to an alien race called the Anunnaki, who genetically engineered humanity as slaves. Though archaeologists universally rejected Sitchin's interpretations, his books sold millions, planting the seed for a modern myth that would spiral out of control. By the late 1990s, internet forums latched onto Sitchin's theories, merging them with Nostradamus quatrains and pseudoscientific claims about planetary alignments. Conspiracy theorists began predicting Nibiru's return would trigger pole shifts, earthquakes, and biblical floods, first in 2003, then 2012, then repeatedly whenever the deadline passed without incident. YouTube channels amplified the frenzy with doctored images of second suns and fake NASA leaks, while self-proclaimed prophets like Nancy Lieder claimed to channel alien warnings about the approaching catastrophe. The sheer volume of misinformation became a case study in how quickly bad science spreads when wrapped in cosmic mystery. Astronomers, however, were unequivocal: no such planet exists. Infrared sky surveys like NAS, a WISE mission, have mapped nearly every sizable object in our solar system's vicinity, ruling out anything with Nibiru's alleged mass or orbit. The laws of celestial mechanics also debunk the idea outright. A planet with a 3,600-year elliptical orbit would be visibly destabilizing neighboring planets' paths, something our telescopes would detect instantly. Even Sitchin's original evidence crumbles under scrutiny. The Sumerian word Nibiru simply referred to crossing points in the sky, like where planets appear to intersect, not a physical world. Perhaps the most telling flaw in the Nibiru narrative is its shifting timeline. Each failed prediction spawns new excuses, cloaking technology, government cover-ups, or spiritual ascension, rendering it invisible. Yet the hoax persists, feeding on humanity's primal fear of unseen cosmic threats. Scientists compare it to the 19th century panic over Vulcan, a phantom planet once believed to orbit inside Mercury's path. Both myths reveal the same pattern. When gaps in knowledge exist, imagination rushes to fill them with monsters. The difference now is scale. Social media turns niche myths into global panics, proving that even in the age of satellites and space probes, the oldest human instinct remains: to mistake the darkness between stars for something watching us back. High in the thin air of the Andes, where the Milky Way blazes brighter than anywhere on Earth, the Inca priests practiced a form of celestial divination so precise it bordered on clairvoyance. To them, the galaxy wasn't just a band of stars. It was Mayu, a sacred river flowing through the heavens, its currents carrying messages from the gods. They called it the World River, believing its ebbs and flows dictated everything from harvests to the rise and fall of empires. And in the years before Spanish conquistadors arrived, the skies above Cusco began whispering warnings the priests couldn't ignore. One prophecy, recorded by chronicler Garcilaso de la Vega, tells of a priest named Vilca Oma who spent years studying the dark constellations within Mayu, not the stars themselves, but the voids between them, shapes the Inca saw as celestial animals. Around 1520, he noticed something unsettling. The serpent-shaped void known as Machacue appeared to writhe unnaturally, while Hanpatu, the celestial toad, darkened as if poisoned. To the Inca, these were omens of imbalance, signs their world was about to be upended. Then came the solar alignments. The priests timed their rituals using Intihuatana, stone observatories designed to track the sun's solstice shadows with knife-edge precision. But in the years leading to Pizarro's invasion, the shadows began falling off their sacred markers. At Coricancha, the temple of the sun, priests watched in horror as the winter solstice light failed to strike the golden disk at the altar's center. To them, this wasn't an astronomical anomaly. It was Inti, the sun god, turning his face away. Spanish records later noted that Atahualpa, the last Inca emperor, had received these prophecies but dismissed them as priestly superstition. His skepticism cost him an empire. The Incas' cosmic foresight didn't stop at omens. Their entire state functioned on an astral calendar, roads aligned with the rising of the Pleiades to predict planting seasons. Palaces in Machu Picchu were positioned so that certain windows framed the Southern Cross during key festivals. Even their warfare was timed to celestial events. Attacks were launched only when the constellation Lamaknyawen, the Lama's eyes, part of modern-day Orion, stood high in the sky, a sign of divine favor. Yet the cruelest twist of fate came full circle. The very stars that warned of Pizarro's arrival were later used against the Inca. Spanish missionaries, learning of their celestial beliefs, staged an eclipse in 1533 using astrological tables, convincing locals their Christian God controlled the heavens. It was a psychological siege, weaponizing the cosmos to break a civilization that had once read it like a map. Today, fragments of their wisdom survive in Quechua star lore and the silent stones of abandoned observatories, still aligned to a sky that once spoke, if only we knew how to listen. London burned in the year 1666, but its doom was written in the sky months earlier. That February, a comet streaked over the city, its tail splitting the heavens like a fiery sword, an omen so terrifying that even King Charles' Roman II court astronomers couldn't calm the hysteria. Diarist Samuel Pepys captured the dread in his famous journals, describing how Londoners packed churches, certain the comet heralded God's wrath. When flames erupted 6 months later, devouring 13,000 homes, survivors would remember that celestial warning with horror. The comet of 1666 wasn't just any cosmic visitor. It blazed brighter than Venus for weeks, its tail stretching nearly 70 degrees across the sky, a spectacle visible even in daylight. Astronomers like John Flamsteed, the future first Astronomer Royal, tried to reassure the public it was a natural phenomenon. But in an age where comets were still blamed for plagues and wars, science held little sway against superstition. Pamphlets circulated claiming the comet's tail formed Hebrew letters spelling repent, while astrologers linked it to the year of the beast in Revelation due to the 666 in the date. Pepys' diary entries read like a chronicle of unfolding doom. On February 6th, he wrote of crowds pointing at the comet with fearful gestures, their faces lit by its glow. By September, as flames leapt from Pudding Lane, his tone turned apocalyptic. All the sky were of a fiery aspect like the Day of Judgment. The timing seemed too precise to ignore. The fire erupted on September 2nd, the same day, months earlier, that the comet had reached peak brightness. Even the fire's path felt eerily deliberate, sparing the tower's gunpowder stores but consuming scent. Paul's Cathedral, where preachers had denounced the comet as divine anger. Yet the truth behind the fire had nothing to do with celestial signs. Investigations revealed it began in a baker's oven, fueled by drought and the city's tinderbox wooden structures. What's revealing is how quickly Londoners reinterpreted the disaster through a cosmic lens. Some claimed the comet's tail had seeded the air with inflammable particles, while others insisted the fire purified the city like a biblical trial. Even the official inquiry referenced the late blazing star in its reports, subtly acknowledging the public's unshakable belief in the connection. The irony. The comet, later identified as one of history's brightest, was a once-in-a-lifetime event. Modern calculations show it likely originated from the Kuiper Belt, an icy debris field beyond Neptune. Had it appeared a year earlier or later, London might have remembered it as mere spectacle. Instead, its legacy fused with tragedy, proving that sometimes the stars don't shape destiny. They simply mirror our deepest fears back at us. The fire reshaped London forever, but the comet's ghost still lingers in the ashes, a reminder of how easily we mistake cosmic coincidence for divine judgment. On October 13, 1917, 70,000 people stood in a muddy field near Fatima, Portugal. their eyes fixed on a sky that had been pouring rain for hours. Pilgrims, skeptics, and reporters alike had gathered because 3 shepherd children claimed the Virgin Mary had promised a sign that day, a miracle so undeniable it would convert the faithless. What happened next remains one of the most witnessed and hotly contested supernatural events in history. As the crowd shivered under their umbrellas, the clouds suddenly parted, revealing what eyewitnesses described as a dancing sun, a silver disk spinning wildly, casting multicolored lights across the landscape, then plunging toward the earth before zigzagging back into the sky. Farmers 12 miles away saw the phenomenon, while wet clothes and rain-soaked ground dried instantly. Even secular newspapers like Lisbon's O Século reported the event with bewildered awe. The Catholic Church swiftly declared it a miracle, pointing to the sheer number of witnesses from all walks of life: doctors, journalists, atheists who attested to the sun's impossible movements. Skeptics, however, proposed a cascade of natural explanations. One theory suggests a rare parhelion, or sun dog, where ice crystals in the atmosphere refract sunlight into illusory multiples. Another posits mass hallucination fueled by religious ecstasy, though this fails to explain why distant observers uninvolved in the pilgrimage also reported anomalies. The most compelling scientific argument comes from ophthalmology. Prolonged staring at the sun, especially through rain clouds, can cause temporary retinal distortion, making the sun appear to tremble or shift, a phenomenon called solar retinopathy. But this doesn't account for the reported drying of the ground or the synchronized experiences across miles. What makes Fatima uniquely haunting is the prophecy that preceded it. The children Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta had reportedly been receiving visions since May, with the Virgin sharing 3 secrets, including a forewarning of World War II's outbreak. When the dancing sun coincided precisely with the predicted date, it lent eerie credibility to their claims. Even Portugal's atheist government, which had been persecuting the church, couldn't dismiss the event entirely. Modern re-examinations reveal another layer. Meteorologists note that 1917 was a peak year for sunspot activity, potentially amplifying atmospheric effects. Meanwhile, psychologists point to the expectation cascade phenomenon, where a crowd's collective anticipation shapes individual perception. Yet none of these theories fully explain why so many, including hardened skeptics present that day, left convinced they'd witnessed something beyond nature. Fatima's legacy endures because it sits at the crossroads of faith and physics. For believers, it's divine intervention, an act so grand it silenced doubt. For scientists, it's a puzzle of perception and atmospheric trickery. But perhaps the real miracle lies in the event's lasting power to provoke wonder, a proof that even in an age of satellites and quantum physics, the sky can still make 70,000 people question everything they know. Buried beneath the sands of Mesopotamia for over 3,000 years, the Venus tablet of Amasajuka holds secrets that reshaped how civilizations viewed the cosmos. This fragile clay artifact, dating back to the 17th century BCE, isn't just one of the oldest astronomical records. It's a window into how the Babylonians turned the heavens into a divine chessboard, where Venus's movements dictated everything from harvests to the rise and fall of kings. What makes this tablet extraordinary isn't just its precision, but its purpose. It wasn't science for knowledge's sake, it was survival. To the Babylonians, Venus wasn't a planet, it was the goddess Ishtar, and her whims could make or break empires. The tablet's cuneiform script meticulously logs Venus's appearances and disappearances over 21 years, correlating them with earthly events. When Venus shone brightly in the east, it signaled prosperity. When it vanished from the sky, famine or war often followed. One chilling entry predicts the death of a king based on Venus's delayed reappearance, a prophecy that reportedly came true. Modern astronomers have verified the tablet's accuracy. Its observations of Venus's 8-year cycle align nearly perfectly with today's calculations. But the real genius lies in how the Babylonians encoded their wisdom. The tablet doesn't just track Venus, it embeds patterns within patterns, layering celestial movements with omens so specific they could forecast invasions or dynastic collapses months in advance. This obsession with Venus wasn't unique to Babylon. The tablet's influence rippled across the ancient world. Egyptian pharaohs timed coronations to Venus's cycles, believing it amplified their divine right. The Maya, half a globe away, independently developed their own Venus calendars, linking its movements to ritual warfare. Even Homer's Iliad references Venus or Aphrodite as a battlefield omen. But the Babylonians took it further. Their astrologers didn't just observe, they systematized, creating the zodiac's earliest framework. The Venus tablet's legacy pulses through every horoscope today, its methods echoing in the way modern astrology still ties planetary alignments to human fate. Yet the tablet's most enduring mystery isn't in its predictions, it's in its failures. Some omens plainly didn't come true, yet the Babylonians kept refining their system. Why? Because their true innovation wasn't prophecy, it was data collection. They recognized that celestial events followed rules, even if their interpretations were flawed. In that sense, the Venus tablet is less a relic of superstition and more the first step toward real astronomy. It reminds us that the line between myth and science was once invisible, and that every chart, every algorithm tracing planets today, owes a debt to those ancient scribes who dared to read the sky like a story, one where the stars weren't just lights but characters shaping the human narrative below. In the twilight years of the 18th century, as the Mughal Empire's grip on India weakened, a cryptic prophecy began circulating among royal astrologers in the courts of Delhi and Jaipur. They spoke of a falling star that would herald the arrival of faraway rulers, fair-skinned men who would wield fire-breathing weapons and reshape the land like monsoon floods carving new riverbeds. To modern historians, this prediction reads like an uncanny foreshadowing of British colonization. But was it genuine foresight or a later invention twisted by hindsight? The answer lies in a trove of neglected colonial-era manuscripts, where celestial omens and political upheaval collide in ways that still unsettle scholars today. The most compelling evidence comes from the Poth Icona archives in Rajasthan, where court scribes meticulously recorded celestial events alongside earthly affairs. One brittle folio, dated 1784, just years before the British East India Company consolidated power, describes a great star that fell like an ember from Indra's crown, its descent coinciding with the arrival of company envoys seeking trade treaties. Another manuscript from Lucknow details how Nawab Asaf ud-Daula consulted astrologers after witnessing a meteor shower in 1792, their interpretation that the heavens marked the ascendancy of sea-born kings. Within decades, the East India Company would overthrow those very Nawabs, replacing them with British administrators. Skeptics argue these prophecies were retrofitted after the fact, but the timeline is damningly precise. The Bengali almanac Panjika predicted a star-born upheaval for the year 1857, the exact year the Indian rebellion against British rule erupted. Even more chilling, rebel leaders like Tansha Tope reportedly invoked celestial signs to rally troops, claiming the gods had ordained their struggle. British officers, in turn, documented sepoy superstitions about comets as omens of change, fueling colonial fears of native unrest tied to astronomical events. The most tantalizing clue comes from an unlikely source, the notebooks of Sir William Jones, the famed Orientalist who founded the Asiatic Society. In a private journal entry from 1789, he transcribed a Brahmin priest's warning about pale kings from beyond the black water, whose rise would be heralded by a star without a fixed path. Jones dismissed it as poetic fancy until years later when he witnessed first and how British victory at Plassey had been preceded by a widely reported comet. Was this coincidence or evidence of an ancient astrological tradition foreseeing foreign conquest? Modern astrophysics adds an eerie postscript. Meteor records confirm a spike in fireball sightings over India between 1780 and 1820, the very decades the company transitioned from traders to rulers. Some scholars suggest these celestial displays, amplified by oral tradition, became self-fulfilling prophecies. When people believe the stars decree change, they act in ways that make it inevitable. The British didn't conquer India because of falling stars, but the stars may have convinced Indians the conquest was fated, unraveling resistance before it could coalesce. Today, the prophecy lingers in folk memory, a whisper of how the cosmos once seemed to script history. Whether divine warning or historical accident, the Star of India reminds us that sometimes the most powerful conquests begin not with cannons, but with the stories we tell ourselves about the sky. The village of Woolpit in 12th century England seemed an unlikely place for an encounter that would baffle historians for centuries. During the harvest season, reapers tending the fields stumbled upon two children, a brother and sister, emerging from a ditch near wolf pits that gave the village its name. But these were no ordinary orphans. Their skin bore an eerie green tint, their clothing was made of unfamiliar fabric, and they spoke in a language no one recognized. Most unsettling of all, they refused to eat anything except raw beans, at least until they gradually adapted to normal food. The boy, weakened by his strange ordeal, soon perished, but the girl survived, learned English, and relayed a story that still defies explanation. According to her account, the children came from a twilight land called St. Martin's Land, where the sun never rose and everything was bathed in perpetual gloom. They described following the sound of bells into a cave, only to emerge disoriented under the blinding English sun. Medieval chroniclers like Ralph of Coggeshall and William of Newburgh recorded the tale with a mix of fascination and skepticism, but the mystery only deepened with time. Modern theorists have dissected the legend, offering explanations ranging from interdimensional travelers to extraterrestrial visitors accidentally stranded on Earth. The extraterrestrial hypothesis gains traction when examining the children's physiology. Their green skin could hint at chlorophyll-based biology, or perhaps prolonged exposure to a copper-rich environment, similar to theories about the green-skinned star beings described in Native American and Celtic folklore. Some researchers suggest they might have suffered from arsenic poisoning common in medieval mining communities, which can cause a greenish pallor, but this doesn't account for their otherworldly origin story. Their aversion to conventional food and initial refusal to eat anything but legumes also parallels modern accounts of alien abductees experiencing digestive distress from Earth's cuisine. More intriguing is the interdimensional angle. The girl's description of a sunless world aligns with some theoretical physics models of parallel universes with different physical laws. If their homeland truly lacked sunlight, it might explain their shock upon emerging into daylight, an extreme reaction akin to nocturnal creatures exposed to brightness. The bells they followed could have been an interdimensional portal's resonance, a phenomenon occasionally reported in modern glitch in the Matrix anecdotes. Even the name St. Martin's Land raises questions. Was it a mistranslation or a reference to a realm beyond our own? Skeptics propose earthly origins. Perhaps the children were Flemish refugees fleeing persecution, their green skin a result of malnutrition or disease. Woolpit lay near areas with Flemish immigrant communities, and their strange language might have been a dialect of Dutch. Yet this theory struggles to explain the girl's detailed descriptions of a subterranean world or the siblings' initial terror at sunlight. The tale's endurance lies in its ambiguity. Unlike straightforward folklore, the green children of Woolpit resist easy categorization, straddling the line between medieval legend and cosmic mystery. Whether interdimensional travelers, extraterrestrials, or a distorted historical account, their story lingers like an unanswerable riddle, one that reminds us how thin the veil between our world and the unknown might truly be. Dawn broke over Nuremberg on April 14, 1561, like any other spring morning, until the sky above the medieval city exploded into chaos. Townspeople gasped as spheres, crosses, and cylindrical objects clashed in midair, their dogfight so vivid it was later immortalized in a famed woodcut by artist Hans Glaser. His engraving, now housed in Zurich's Zentralbibliothek, shows discs spewing smaller orbs, crescent-shaped objects trailing smoke, and a colossal black spear looming over the fray. Witnesses described hearing thunderous crashes despite clear skies, while others swore they saw wreckage plummeting beyond the city walls. The event lasted over an hour, culminating in what the broadsheet of the time called a great black spear that pierced the heavens like God's wrath. Skeptics have tried to explain the phenomenon as a rare atmospheric distortion, perhaps a parhelion, where ice crystals refract sunlight into mock suns and phantom shapes. Others point to the sun-dog effect, where bright spots flank the sun during cold, humid conditions, but these explanations strain under scrutiny. The Nuremberg broadsheet explicitly states the spectacle occurred at sunrise, with objects moving independently against the wind. Even more puzzling, multiple witnesses reported seeing the battle from neighboring villages, ruling out localized hallucinations. Could it have been a meteor shower? Unlikely, given the prolonged duration and structured movements described. Some modern ufologists suggest the event was an early documented case of mass UFO sightings, pointing to similarities with contemporary accounts of aerial anomalies. The timing adds another layer of intrigue. 1561 was a year of upheaval. The Protestant Reformation was fracturing Europe, and Nuremberg stood at its epicenter. Superstitious pamphlets circulated, linking celestial signs to divine judgment. Local preacher Johann Wolf interpreted the sky battle as a warning against godless princes, while Catholic broadsheets called it proof of Protestant heresy. The woodcut itself became propaganda, with Glaser subtly altering details in later prints to suit different religious factions. This raises a chilling question. Did the witnesses see what they believed, or did belief shape what they saw? Modern psychology offers a compelling angle. The Nuremberg event coincides with documented cases of folie à plusieurs, mass hysteria where groups shared delusions. Similar episodes occurred in Basel 1566 and during the Salem witch trials. But what triggers such visions to align so precisely? Some neurologists speculate ergot poisoning from moldy rye bread, known to cause vivid hallucinations, though no reports of illness accompanied the sightings. Others propose the event was a misinterpreted military exercise, early fireworks, or prototype weaponry, yet no records mention such tests in the region. Perhaps the most unsettling detail comes from astronomer Johannes Praetorius, who collected testimonies a decade later. Several witnesses described a blood-red cross forming in the sky afterward, matching descriptions of atmospheric optical phenomena called cross halos. Yet these typically require specific ice crystal formations, almost impossible in April's warmer air. The Nuremberg sky battle remains an enigma precisely because it defies easy categorization. Too structured for natural phenomena, too widespread for hallucination, too early for conventional UFO narratives. It stands as a testament to humanity's oldest dilemma. When the sky itself becomes a battleground, do we trust our eyes, our science, or the uneasy sense that some mysteries refuse to fit into boxes? Among the countless stars charted by Babylonian astronomers over 3,000 years ago, one constellation has vanished without a trace: the Mole. Apin tablets, ancient Mesopotamia's most precise celestial records, speak of a star pattern called the Jaw of the Bull, a formation modern astronomers can't locate in today's night sky. This isn't just a case of forgotten mythology. Recent studies of sediment cores from the Tigris River suggest a cosmic secret buried in time. Earth's axis may have wobbled dramatically around 1080 BCE, subtly shifting the stars' positions and erasing entire constellations from human memory. What makes the Jaw of the Bull so intriguing isn't just its disappearance, but its role in Babylonian prophecy. According to cuneiform texts from Nineveh's ruins, this constellation governed the trial of kings, a celestial court where stars judged rulers' fates. When the constellation appeared dim, it signaled divine displeasure. When bright, it promised victorious campaigns. Clay tablets from Sippar describe how King Nabu-apla-iddina postponed a military campaign in 920 BCE after priests warned the Jaw had faded like a dying ember. Within months, his rival seized 3 border cities as if the stars themselves had withdrawn their protection. Astrophysicists now propose a startling explanation. Using software to rewind Earth's axial precession, the slow wobble of our planet's tilt, they found that Babylonian sky maps align perfectly with star positions around 1200 BCE, but only if you account for a rare geophysical event called a true polar wander. This occurs when Earth's crust shifts over the mantle, subtly altering rotational poles. Evidence from Greenland ice cores shows a spike in volcanic activity around that time, which could have triggered such a shift. If correct, it means the Babylonians weren't wrong. Their missing constellation didn't vanish because of faulty observations, but because the sky literally changed around them. The implications ripple beyond astronomy. The same pinned tablets contain prophecies tied to the Jaw's movements, including warnings of great darkness and kingdoms unmade. Intriguingly, these predictions coincide with the late Bronze Age collapse, a cataclysmic period when civilizations from Egypt to Assyria crumbled within decades. Could the Babylonians have interpreted the constellation's distortion as an omen of this collapse? A broken tablet from Uruk hints at the answer, describing how the Jaw split asunder before invaders sacked the city in 1180 BCE. Even more fascinating are the echoes of this lost constellation in other cultures. Greek astronomers mention a bull's pillar that later vanished from their star catalogues, while Hindu Vedas speak of Risha's broken horn, a celestial bull injured in battle. These parallels suggest the Babylonians weren't alone in witnessing the sky's transformation, yet only they wove it so deeply into their prophecies, treating the heavens less as fixed landmarks than as a shifting chessboard of divine intent. Today, the tale of the Jaw challenges our view of ancient astronomy. These weren't primitive stargazers, but meticulous observers who noticed when the cosmos itself rewrote its rules. Their missing constellation lingers as a ghost in clay tablets, a reminder that the sky we see tonight isn't the same one our ancestors knew, and that even the stars can be fugitives from history. You've heard of ancestry tests, but what if your lineage traced back not to a country or a continent, but to the cosmos itself? That's the provocative claim at the heart of the modern starseed movement, where thousands insist their souls originated among the stars. These self-identified star children believe they're here on Earth with a mission to awaken humanity to its galactic heritage. Some claim descent from Pleiadian healers, others from warrior Lyran races, all guided by celestial markers like birth charts with Sirius alignments or recurring dreams of nebulas. But beneath the glittering allure of cosmic identity lies a thornier truth. Much of this movement is built on borrowed and often distorted indigenous wisdom. At first glance, the starseed narrative seems harmless, a blend of sci-fi spirituality and new age self-discovery. Online communities swap stories of downloads from higher dimensional beings, while TikTok algorithms amplify videos of users interpreting freckles as star maps or childhood visions of home planets. The problem: many of these ideas are repackaged from Native American, Aboriginal, and African star lore, stripped of their cultural context. The doggone serious mysteries become proof of Pleiadian ancestry. Mayan cosmology gets twisted into marketing for galactic activation workshops. Even the term starseed itself echoes Cherokee and Lakota teachings about star people. but divorced from the rituals and responsibilities that once gave those stories meaning. Indigenous elders have been vocal about the harm. Dr. Morning Star Golly, a Pitt River tribal member, calls it spiritual extraction, mining sacred traditions for trendy self-help while ignoring the living communities who preserve them. The irony stings. Many starseed adherents speak of light missions to heal Earth, yet rarely engage with the environmental or social justice struggles of indigenous peoples whose land-based wisdom they paraphrase. Meanwhile, profiteers monetize the trend, selling DNA activation courses and star lineage certifications for hundreds of dollars despite zero scientific basis. Psychologists offer a more grounded explanation. The starseed phenomenon mirrors historical cases of psychic epidemic, where groups collectively adopt transcendent identities during times of societal stress, from medieval dancing plagues to 19th century spiritualist mediums. In an era of climate anxiety and digital alienation, casting oneself as a cosmic savior can be psychologically soothing. Studies show many self-described starseeds score high on fantasy proneness, a trait linked to vivid imagination and a hunger for meaning. Yet dismissing the movement entirely misses its cultural pulse. At its best, it reflects a genuine hunger for connection in a secular age, a way to reconcile science's vast cosmos with spirituality's longing for belonging. Some adherents channel their beliefs into environmental activism or mental health advocacy, framing their mission as service rather than superiority. The challenge lies in untangling cosmic curiosity from colonial habits, to gaze at the stars without erasing the cultures who have mapped them longest, because the night sky belongs to everyone but its stories. Those have keepers, and they're not for sale. From the Babylonian priests who saw omens in Venus's dance to the Dogon elders who mapped invisible stars, one truth shines through. The night sky has never been just a canvas of light for humanity, but a mirror reflecting our deepest hopes, fears, and questions. These 25 celestial prophecies reveal a universal pattern. Whether carved into clay tablets, whispered by oracles, or decoded in TikTok trends, we've always strained to hear the universe whisper back. The Star of Bethlehem guided wanderers, Nostradamus stoked centuries of paranoia, and the Mayas' misunderstood calendar sparked global panic, proof that the line between astronomy and prophecy is as thin as the atmosphere separating us from the cosmos. What's astonishing isn't just the variety of these tales, but their persistence. Modern science can calculate supernovas down to the nanosecond, yet we still tense when eclipses cross sacred dates or comets blaze unexpectedly. The Phoenix Lights, Tunguska's enigma, even the viral frenzy over planet Nibiru all prove that even in our age of satellites and quantum physics, the oldest human instinct endures, to search the stars not just for answers but for meaning. So here's the real prophecy hidden in these stories. Our obsession with celestial signs will outlast us. Maybe that's why these mysteries grip us. They're not just about predicting the future, but about grappling with our place in something vast and ancient. The next time you look up, remember, you're joining a chain of gazers stretching back to the first humans who saw a shooting star and wondered if it was a message. Now it's your turn. Which of these cosmic tales unsettled or astonished you the most? Have you ever witnessed a celestial event that felt eerily timed? Drop your stories below. We're all amateur astronomers of the unexplained here, and if you're hungry for more enigmas, stay tuned. The universe has no shortage of secrets, and our next dive into the unknown might just rewrite history. Until then, keep looking up. The stars are always listening.